TNA Wrestling crossed that line again, and my word, did they put on a hell of a show this week on TNA Impact. There was bloodshed in the main event between Steve Maclin and Eric Young for the International Championship. We'll get into that and so much more on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. But first things first, new signings for TNA Wrestling. We may have spoke about them last week, but they have finally crossed the line right now. Harley Hudson, Myla Grace have crossed the line and signed with TNA Wrestling. Some fantastic acquisitions there for the Knockouts division that is seemingly getting a little bit of a refresh. Obviously, Maggie Lee recently signed as well. So these are going to add to a heavily stacked Knockouts division. And if I'm right in thinking, either next week on TNA or the week after, we will see Harley Hudson, Myla Grace crossing the line for TNA and having their first match, I believe, against each other on TNA Wrestling. But congratulations to Harley and to Myla. Now, obviously, Harley Hudson did win the TNA gut check a couple of years ago now when TNA last come over to the UK. Do not leave it too much longer, TNA, before coming back, if you please. Now, as always, TNA Impact is live on the TNA Plus app. Get it downloaded, get subscribed. And if you, well, you can just subscribe to about, I think it's $9.99 a month to the basic package, which will give you the live impacts. But if you want to include pay-per-views and you want to include all of the legendary TNA bouts of yesteryear involving legends like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Alex Skipper, Sting, Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and so much more. Get the championship package. That will give you access to the library of TNA action. And if you don't get the TNA Plus up and you don't download, you are missing a lot of special things going on right now in TNA. But let's get involved. Let's get straight into it. Trick Williams, NXT star Trick Williams, come out and he had a lot of security with him this week on TNA. But he's coming out to address the fact that on NXT this week, they made the match official for Battleground. Trick Williams, Joe Hendry, TNA World Heavyweight Championship match at Battleground. And he doesn't care if the fans boo him. You can boo him all you want, but he's going to embarrass average Joe Hendry, at Battleground and claim the TNA Heavyweight Championship. And just think about that for a minute. An NXT wrestler wins the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. That could happen at Battleground. It'll be a first ever, should it happen. And once again, the prestigious TNA World Championship is getting exposure on WWE television and over here in the UK, getting exposure on Netflix. Can't do much better than that for TNA. But of course, he did mention the name Joe Hendry, and when you say his name, he does indeed appear. And Joe Hendry comes down to the ring. He wasn't looking happy, but security did stop him. But he starts beating the crap out of the security team. Ends up giving one of them the standing ovation as Trick Williams heads away from the action. But Trick Williams, Joe Hendry set for Battleground on May 23rd, if memory serves me right. That will be an interesting week. I mean, that's bank holiday weekend over here in the UK again. So we get some more wrestling. I believe Saturday night's main event may even be the next night. So I know it's the same day. It's an earlier kickoff time for Battleground, if my memory serves me rightly. So Joe Hendry, Trick Williams, official Battleground NXT, Saturday, May 23rd. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Right. But we start with knockouts action this week on TNA, and Rosemary goes one-on-one with Li Ying Lee. And I tell you what, It's gonna be interesting with these two competitors at ringside. But before we get there, we have to go backstage. Now, Robert Stone, who used to be Robbie E in TNA, if you have the championship package on the TNA Plus app, you may be able to see him as Robbie E. He comes with Victoria Crawford, the artist formerly known as Alicia Fox. Now, those of you who remember last week, Victoria Crawford gets a shot at Masha Slamovich's Under Siege. In fact, that is May 23rd. The Battleground is May 24th or 25th. Apologies for that. I'm getting those two shows confused because they're very close together. Anyway, and if you also remember last week, Crawford and Stone were not happy with Santino Marella, and he's not approving of Santino's dog collar main event between Maclin and Eric Young, and he said he doesn't think upper management will like it. And obviously at the same time he says to Victoria Crawford, you got to get ready because your debut is coming up very very soon on TNA. It's actually coming up this. It was on this show tonight, but I don't. I don't think these two are well matched together as a a duo. They just looked a bit awkward in that segment, to be fair. I'm looking forward to seeing Victoria Crawford wrestle, mind you, but just that segment with Robert Stone wasn't very keen, in my opinion. Anyway, back to the action. Like I said, Rosemary, Lei Ying Lee on having a match together to kick off uh, Impact with Zaya Brookside on commentary. Now, we know Zaya Brookside has had her issues with Rosemary in the past, and that is well documented and is also very clear if you watch TNA as much as we do. However, in a great knockouts contest, Zaya Brookside does get involved at ringside, stops Rosemary from using the brass knuckles after an enthralling beginning to TNA, and that allows Lei Ying Lee to eat the thunderstruck finisher for the pinfall, which I very much enjoyed. And I tell you, like I said, we're adding more knockouts to the roster here on TNA. And those two right there, Lei Ying Lee, for argument's sake, has kind of gone under the radar a little bit here because she come in from NXT. She got released from WWE, coming from NXT. And, it's quite interesting because she hasn't really been mentioned too much. Um, I feel as if we now need to see her more prominently because she is very, very talented, as all the knockouts are. But one I think needs to get some more ring time, Lei Ling Yi, and someone that can very much match Masha Slamovich without question. So I'm really interested to see when we do get a bit more Li Ying Li time on TNA TV. We need it very soon, please. Um, as we head to backstage, Mike Santana was backstage as he passes Trick Williams and they shared a glare. But they continue on their opposite paths away. And Sammy Callahan was seated with John Goblicon, I think his name is. But he shows respect to Mike Santana. And just as he does that, here comes AJ Francis and Casey Navarro from First Class. And they actually ended up offering Callahan a spot in the group, which he wasn't interested. Of course, Sammy Callahan. Does he really want to win in first class? First class? I don't think so. I certainly wouldn't have put Sammy Callahan in first class whatsoever. But nevertheless, he definitely said no. He wasn't interested at all. Now, back to tag team action and somebody else that has recently signed with TNA, Octagon Jr. He was with Laredo Kid against the Good Hands. Now, Octagon Jr. and Laredo Kid go by the name of the Aztec Warriors. And before this match starts, we get to see the starting of the Maggie Lee Elegance Makeover. Yes, it definitely happens. There's a lot of goofy behavior in this with some great slow motion camera effects. But Maggie Lee is seemingly going to be joining, well, Maggie by Elegance by the sounds of it. And with that, adds yet another notch to the Elegance's pole. And to be quite honest, that is a formidable trio in TNA. And again, the Knockouts division showing how stacked it is. but Maggie Lee could well be heading the way of the elegance. We will see. But as we said before, now the good hands or the great hands against the Aztec Warriors. Brilliant tag match. I really enjoyed this match at the end, to be honest. There was a lot of high flying involved, as you can imagine, with Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr. The good hands did start off strong in this, though. They was obviously using the power, the high flying stuff, can be succumbed to if you have the power and the means to get out of the way, and that's exactly what was going on. But really impressive tag match. Like both of these teams, to be honest with you, both could be challenging for tag team gold in the future. Nevertheless, the Aztec Warriors picked up the victory, which enraged Mustafa Ali. There was a beatdown going on. Tasha Steelz and Tasha Steelz and the Great Hands even tried to stop him as he was violently beating down Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr. But finally, the Rascals come to the aid of the Aztec Warriors and they bail out to the good hands and Mustafa Ali. But Ali was absolutely raging about this loss. He really, really was. But he needs to center his anger because Ali is in a match straight away with Trey Miguel and he kicked it straight off. They weren't wasting any time. This was a fast paced, in your face encounter on TNA. I really enjoyed this with these two. The only thing again that I would say, and it keeps cropping up, and I think I'm just more on it now because I see it week in, week out with the system, is interference. And Ali does hit a, I mean, he ate, sorry, a huge DDT on the floor, and he did recover to get back in the ring. Um, But as he's doing so, Trey Miguel's getting beaten down by the good hand because the referee's focused on Ali, and that allows Ali to hit his finisher and pick up the victory on Trey Miguel, which is a shame because it really kind of, again, sometimes these things spoil the match a little bit, and yeah, just a little bit frustrated with the interference. But Mustafa Ali picks up the victory against Trey Miguel. Now, we've just spoken about knockouts and the new knockouts, but there's also another new knockout that we have mentioned these last few weeks, and that is Indy Hartwell from the WWE. She is now fully crossed the line over to NXT. And you know what? She doesn't just want to be a knockout, she wants to be the knockout. And it's going to be interesting to see who's going to stop her, to be quite honest with you. I'm really looking forward to this. But she was talking about how she was a TNA fan growing up, actually. She's got TNA replica titles and DVDs and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this. They actually showed some really good videos of her growing up and with all of this stuff. So it's not as if it's just a lie because she's on TNA. There is legitimacy here to this story, which really bodes to a story of Indy Hartwell perhaps becoming Knockouts champion. Who knows? I'm interested to see who she gets in there with at first, because that's going to give us a good insight as to where she fits in early doors with TNA. But with the likes of Harley Hudson and Myla Grace and Maggie Lee, and you gotta get your foot on the floor and start going. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind in this division. This division is stacked with people who are not only great but have a point to prove, and that's massively important because you don't want to come in with your chip on your shoulder. You want to get your chip on your shoulder, and you're going to need to in this division in TNA, or you're going to be left behind. So, will Indy Hartwell become the knockout? Only time will, of course, tell. But we now move into the Hardys, who are inside the impact zone. They are not happy at all, and they're about connection with the fans, but more importantly than that, they want their tag team championships back. And they will fight, scratch, and claw their way to obtaining it. But they were interrupted by Ryan Nemeth. Like, that was so touching, boys. But don't worry, because my big brother and I are going to take the tag team vision to new heights. And they actually said, well, do you know what? We run TNA, and you can have your shot at Under Siege in Canada. But wait a minute, Jeff Hardy isn't allowed in Canada. Now, that is actually true due to Jeff Hardy's past and whatnot. He isn't actually allowed to travel to Canada. So, what has happened as they were going to leave the NMF, Santino Marilla's music hits. And he says, well, actually, Jeff can't travel to Canada. That is true. So next week on TNA, we're going to get Jeff Hardy versus Nick Nemeth. What will be an unbelievable match. But he also says, Under Siege, it will be the Nemeths defending the tag team championships against Matt Hardy and a partner of his choosing, who I am already predicting to be the youngest in charge. Leon Slater hopefully will be Matt Hardy's partner and hopefully will win tag team gold. But we will see. Victoria Crawford was next, the former Alicia Fox against Brittany Brooks. Robert Stone on commentary, of course, for this one. To be quite honest, it didn't really last long before Victoria Crawford hits the axe kick and picks up the victory. You was expecting it. Was it underwhelming a little bit? Yeah. But you was expecting a squash because, quite frankly, it needed to be, to be honest with you. But as Crawford gets on the microphone, she starts talking trash. Out comes Masha Slamovich to confront her. However, as they were brawling, Tessa Blanchard comes to play and that joins the mix and it's all over the place. But Santina Marilla then comes out and says next week on Impact it will be Tessa Blanchard and Victoria Crawford against Masha Slamovich and a partner of her choosing. Well, we're kind of getting that Under Siege. So Robert Stone says, you know what? No. I'm going to pick Masha's partner, and she is from NXT. She is the Lioness. It is Nikita Lyons. Next week will partner Masha Slamovich against Tessa Blanchard and Victoria Crawford. Matt Cardona is on commentary for the main event, and my God, this was one of the best TNA Impact main events in years. The dog collar match between Eric Young, Steve Maclin. We have known for weeks Maclin has been hung, drawn, and quartered by the Northern Armory and Eric Young, but God. Even Matt Cardona said this match was too bloody for him, and he is the death match king. This was absolutely crazy. They were blood. The ring was literally red. The ring mat was literally a crimson color of blood due to these two. And he ended up, the Northern Armory get involved. There is so much going on this. But Steve Maclin, who is literally, oh my God, he was covered in blood, literally covered in blood. And he hits the KAI on Eric Young for the victory. But my God, that was one hell of a main event. Guys, if you haven't downloaded the TNA Plus app yet, get it downloaded, get subscribed. Just watch that. That is enough for anyone to purchase the TNA Plus app. It's enough for a lot of things. You need to get it. You need to get it downloaded. And if, as I say, you want to watch some of the old stuff with AJ Styles, Samoa Joe and co., get the championship package. That will include all pay-per-views that TNA will be doing. What an impact this week we've got. And now we've got some special news as well. This coming Tuesday, we're going to be on the TNA press pack again. So big thanks to TNA for doing this. Slightly different one this time. So they partnered with Invictus, an MMA company, and we're going to be talking to, or we're going to be a part of, the press pack that has former WWE wrestler Sonya Deville will be joining us on Tuesday. So we're really looking forward to that, guys. Keep it locked at HTT Buckle on X, HTT Buckle on YouTube, hitting the Turnbuckle podcast on all other social media outlets. If you're a TNA fan, we'll be back next week to cross that line. If you're not, we'll be back later on this week with some more shows. But until then, everybody, cross the line and stay safe.